I don't know how you feel, but it's almost like I know exactly what's going to happen in tonight's game against Chelsea. If we go ahead, they'll come back because we didn't make the most of a lead and double it. If we go behind, we'll collapse like a deck of cards. I'm resigned to it. I hope I'm wrong, but I've seen it too many times before at Stamford Bridge. Seemingly, though, I'm not the only person resigned to their fate, as Big Ange Postecoglou has come out with some of the strangest quotes I've ever seen from a top-level elite manager, suggesting that there are incredible potential replacements for himself on the market if Tottenham let him go. Very odd. I'll be discussing all this and giving my thoughts on tonight's London derby in today's episode of Daily Tottenham Hotspur News. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in wherever you are. Let's get started with those quotes from Ange Postecoglou. He said this: "I'm sure if the club decide to go in a different direction, there are some outstanding candidates out there for it." Guys, let me know in the comments, what on earth is he doing? I love how Ange is always so frank and so honest in his press conferences and in his interviews. I get that. He's a proper bloke. He's not a game player really, but it does come across to me like he's a little bit resigned to his fate. Like he knows that it's over, and it's not over yet. If he wins the Europa League, I've said it time and time again, if he wins that Europa League, for me, he gets next season and the season after. I'll even stop complaining about the fact that we keep conceding the same goal at the back post and that we don't stop crosses at source. Because maybe Ange would have shown us that actually with just a few additions, we could take that Europa League form into the league and play over 38 games the way we did in the first 10 games of last season. So he has a chance. He has a chance to make a legacy at Tottenham Hotspur. I can't tell whether those quotes are just something that have been taken a little bit out of context and he was kind of being his usual sarcastic self. Maybe he was. But I think he has to realise, even in that instance, that a lot of people just read the stuff in print. A lot of people don't watch the actual YouTube press conferences when they're put out there, or the clips that are put out on Sky Sports News. So I don't know, Ange. I think he's got to be a little bit more careful at the moment, because stuff like that also does drip feed through to the players. And, you know, I personally think there are some players within that Spurs squad who have kind of lost belief in what Ange is trying to do already. I don't think it's all of them. And I think, for instance, Christian Romero has been pretty forthright throughout about the fact that he loves Ange and he would leave if Ange was given the sack. And actually, I think one of the reasons Daniel Levy may not have given Ange the sack yet is because of what Romero has come out and said over the course of the season, and kind of some of the X posts that he's liked, or Instagram posts that he's liked, that say that he would leave if Ange Postecoglou was given the boot. So yeah, I'm not really sure. I also think these comments that Ange made about Mauricio Pochettino and that famous photograph where Pochettino was outside having a coffee with Daniel Levy, supposedly at some time over the last 6 weeks or so. I know that Ange was asked the question, so he had to answer it, but I'm not sure about the way that he's answered it. Let me know what you think. But he said this: "Mauricio, if he wants to come back, I hope it happens. We all have dreams and aspirations. I don't feel disrespected, and if you ask Mauricio Pochettino directly, you'll get a clear answer as to what his intent was. Nothing for me to be consumed with, more focused on making sure we win tomorrow," meaning tonight in the Chelsea game. Look, you know, I think to some degree you could look at it two ways here. You could say that Big Ange is, saying, "I don't feel disrespected. I'm not going to throw Daniel Levy under the bus." I mean, let's face it. Imagine how Jose Mourinho or Antonio Conte would have reacted to seeing their chairman having a coffee with the previous manager who we all know wants to come back to the club and who the fans love more than any manager of the last 35, 40 years. I think Conte or Mourinho would absolutely go skits about it. They'd probably resign from the job. They'd certainly be throwing Daniel Levy under the bus in every single press conference. So maybe there's something to be said for the fact that Big Ange isn't doing that. But for me, a little bit, it seems like he's playing for his compensation. Do you know what I mean? Because you can't tell me that in the background, Big Ange Postecoglou didn't see that photo and hear everybody talking about that story and just think it's not a good look. It doesn't make him look good. I think it doesn't show that Big Ange is in a strong position. And at a time when he needs all the support he can get from those within the club more than anything, because he's right, and that there is definitely a big element of the fan base who have turned against believing that Ange can bring the success that we desire. then I think, Daniel Levy should have been doing everything he could to not be spotted in those positions. And I'm surprised that Ange has been so fair about it, really. Maybe that comment where he says, if you ask Poch directly, you'll get a clear answer as to what his intent was. I wonder if there's been some text messages or phone calls behind the scene and Poch has kind of called Ange to say, I'm not trying to grab your job or something like that. That's what comes across there to me. But let me know what you think in the comments. Ange was also asked about results and trying to unify the fans ahead of this important couple of weeks. Of course, tonight, Chelsea away. Weekend, Southampton at home, and then the two legs of the Eintracht Frankfurt Europa League quarter-final, but with a chance to get through to the semi-final with a match at Wolves in between. Ange said the following, I just don't think you can get caught up with that. Our job, our role, and our responsibility is to try and put in a strong performance tomorrow to win. That's it. You can't get consumed by too many things that are out of your control. They are out of our control how other people feel. What we can do is perform against a tough opponent in Chelsea and try to gain some momentum leading into an important part of the season for us. That's where our focus and the players' focus has been. Okay, that seems more along the kind of lines of what a media trainer would tell someone to reply when getting some difficult questions when you're under pressure. But Ange was then asked, will Chelsea be a similar test to the Frankfurt game, and therefore is it a good time to play a game like Chelsea away where there'll be a big difficult crowd and a lot of pressure and an important, like you said, an important situation in terms of us trying to regain some momentum before those big European games. He said it's a little bit different because I think European competition and knockout competition tends to be a little more cagey. But there are some similar elements there, playing away from home against a loud fan base, against a quality opponent, where certainly if we can come through that test, it gives you confidence about what is ahead. Now, let me know how you feel. Chelsea have obviously not been playing great, actually, since they beat Tottenham at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. What a surprise. But for this game, and in a classic kind of, everything's been against Spurs this season, they've got Nicholas Jackson and Cole Palmer back and a few other injuries, haven't they? And I was talking to my cousin this week, who's a staunch Chelsea fan, and I was like, you haven't been playing that well, have you? And he's like, no, awful. I'm not very confident going into the Spurs game, not as confident as I usually would be. And I said, don't worry about it. Because for instance, Jadon Sancho, who hasn't scored, and I barely think he's made an assist since he played that brilliant game at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. His form has dropped off a cliff. He'll be back tonight. He'll score again tonight. Cole Palmer hasn't scored in ages. He'll score. Jackson back from injury. They'll score. You know what it's like when Tottenham go to Stamford Bridge. Other than that one incredible day where we won thanks to those goals from Christian Eriksen and the brilliant goal from Dele Alli. Other than that day, we just go there and find new and unique ways to cause our own downfall. Do you remember that horrible Kieran Trippier own goal where him and Lloris basically ran into each other? Yeah, look, I'm hoping that by saying all this negativity about it, that I'm jinxing it the correct way and we'll actually go and put in a performance and turn them over. But who knows? I think we all know, basically. Ange was also asked on whether Spurs might adapt a more defensive setup in an attempt to frustrate Chelsea. I actually like what he said here. He said, sorry to disappoint. We'll go there and have a crack and see if it'll be a good game and hopefully we'll come out on top. So goals as per normal. Ange was asked about Christian Romero. He said he's delighted that he could get through 2 games with the international team in Argentina. It's great for us. He's not played a lot of football. Footballers need to play rather than him sitting around for 2 weeks. He needed games. And this is where we're getting into kind of the team news, really, that Ange brought out yesterday. He was asked about Lucas Bergvall because he missed both of the Sweden games during the international break with a bug. Ange said Lucas is fine. He had a bit of an illness, picked up a bug, but he got back at the weekend and straight into training. It was a good international break for us. Firstly, obviously, no one picked up anything, which is important, but also some guys got some game time, which we felt was going to be important, such as Romero, Udogie, Matty Tell, Wilson Odobert, and more. They missed a lot of football recently and all got some good game time. The ones who played all did relatively well. They're all back, and we've had a strong training group in the last couple of days. Obviously, this brings us into the reality of tonight. I've spoken about it before, but I'm really interested to know what you think. So do put your the team that you want to see Ange picks in the comments below, because I'm intrigued. For me, I think tonight away at Chelsea, he needs to play a team as close as possible to the one that he wants to start against Eintracht Frankfurt with. So that means For me, Van der Ven and Romero have to start together, and we have to get that team as close as possible to the one that we want playing, so they can get some rhythm playing together to try and get into some form together and remember each other's rotations and patterns. Then, if he does that, and fingers crossed, dear God, please let us come away from tonight with no injuries, then for me, I think then against Southampton, you rotate. I know there's a temptation there to try and play your best team 3 games in a week, but I just don't think, based on the experience of the injuries and the recurring injuries that we pick up, it's a good idea. I think you rotate then against Southampton, make 7 or 8 changes like you did in the previous game against Fulham, and then go again with your best team against Eintracht Frankfurt and do the same against Wolves. But let me know what you think, because as ever, football and supporting Spurs and team predictions, it's all very subjective and you may feel differently. So let me know what you think in the comments. I'd be really intrigued to know. Some not so good news, unfortunately, on Kevin Danso and Dejan Kulusevski. I was hoping that they'd be available now after that long international break and the FA Cup at the end of the international break. So we've had basically 3 weeks off. But Ange said this: Kevin and Decky are working hard still. They're probably a couple of weeks away, but both are progressing well. He went on to say that he hopes that Kulusevski might be available for the second leg, the away leg against Frankfurt. That would be huge, because obviously that is the game that's basically going to decide our season. Okay, before I go into some more Tottenham stats and news and talk a little bit more about the Chelsea game as well, please do, guys, if you're watching and you like this content, please do press like on YouTube. And also, if you're not a subscriber already, please do press that subscribe button for daily Tottenham Hotspur content. And as we get closer to the summer transfer window, I always bring in the daily transfer talk videos across the Premier League and European football, always starting, of course, with Tottenham's transfer rumours. And I do think it will be another busy summer at Tottenham Hotspur, despite those financial results and the statement from Daniel Levy saying, basically alluding to the fact that we won't be spending that much. You've got to look at the way that we've spent since 2019. We spent over £250 million in the last year alone, and I think that will continue. I think what Levy was saying in his statement is we don't have reserves of cash that we can just throw at it, but the revenue that we do bring in from the multifunction Tottenham Hotspur Stadium is money that we are ploughing back into transfer fees. Now, I'm not suggesting that Daniel Levy is going to open the purse strings when it comes to the wage structure. That's not going to happen. But in terms of more exciting young talent, I can see that coming in. Anyway, guys, like I said, if you like this daily content, please do press that subscribe button. Okay, I saw some quite incredible stats about Ange Postecoglou's time at Tottenham. I thought before this Chelsea game and before basically this vital 2 weeks to his future as Tottenham Hotspur boss, it was worth reading to you. Defeat at Chelsea tonight would see Ange become the first Spurs manager to lose his first 4 league games against Chelsea. No side has earned fewer points in Premier League London derbies this season than Spurs, who've lost 5 of 9 and only won 3. From their November the 6th defeat to Chelsea, we have suffered 27 defeats and 22 wins. That was that November the 6th defeat. When was that? Is that this season, or is he talking about? Must be talking about the game 11 games into last season when we'd had that brilliant start. So since that, the real turning point in Ange's career at Spurs, because everyone was believing before that Chelsea game where we had 2 men sent off, but since then 27 league defeats, 22 wins. Not good. In total, since November the 5th, before that Chelsea game at home, we've lost 35 matches. That's huge. Only 4 ever-present Premier League clubs, basically those who have been in the Premier League since its starting, have taken fewer points than us from then. And we will drop 2 more places should we lose to Chelsea and Everton. Well, Everton didn't win, did they? But if West Ham win, we'll drop 1 more place. No shots on target against Fulham in the opening 45 minutes meant it was the 9th time we failed to register a shot on target in the first half of a Premier League match under Postecoglou, and that is more than our last 2 permanent managers combined. Conte had 6 and Nuno had 2. Our away form has been appalling too. Only relegation-threatened sides Leicester and Southampton have lost more Premier League away games than us. Leicester have lost 10, Southampton 12, and we have lost 8. Spurs have lost a staggering 15 of 29 games, taking us over the 50% mark. We've lost 19 games in total so far, with 11 games to go, giving Ange a 43% win rate, and we have a points per game average for the season of just 1.17. So Listen, I'll caveat again, I would love Ange to bring home the Europa League trophy. All would be forgiven. It would all be fine if that's the case. But he is on the cliff edge, isn't he? There's just no defending that. And I think I've said it before, but I'll say it again. I don't think we can have it every which way. There have been Tottenham fans for a long time now who've been saying, I would happily take 17th in the league if we won a trophy. Well, if that happens, then you're going to get it. And I don't think we can complain about the league form if that happens. However, also where we can't have it every way is a lot of the fan base have been having a go at Daniel Levy for a long time for sacking managers too easily and for the cycle, the cycle starting again, the 2-year cycle of management. Well, he's trying to break that cycle. Daniel Levy is trying to break that cycle, and that is why he has not sacked Ange Postecoglou. And I see a lot of the same fans who are complaining about that cycle now complaining about Ange Postecoglou, and I just don't think you can have it each and every way. You've got to decide based on what's going on, how you feel, and not just kind of follow a narrative. And that's why, for me, there are things about Ange Postecoglou that frustrate me a lot, like I mentioned earlier in the video, us conceding the exact same goal at the back post time and time again. The amount of chances we concede there is ridiculous. And in the Premier League, in the elite league, where you've got the best players in the world, I'm afraid, Ange, it is quite easy to deliver across to the back post and for your back post player, even if it's a fullback, to be a good enough finisher to punish you. Whereas maybe in Japan and Australia and in Scotland, you could give away those back post chances, and more often than not, in fact, probably quite a high percentage of the time, a goal wouldn't be scored. Well, here they get scored a lot. And that is why crosses have to be stopped at source, and you have to ask your wide forwards to come and help your fullbacks. But he doesn't. Brennan Johnson, whenever he plays wide right for Spurs, the amount of times you see him as we're conceding a chance on his side at the back post, just lingering 10 yards outside of our box. And the reason he's doing that, although I blame him when I see it, it winds me up something chronic. But clearly the reason he does that is because Ange Postecoglou says to him, I'm willing to take a risk on us conceding a goal at the back post, because if the delivery is bad and it goes straight into Vicario's arms or a defender heads it away to you, you are then on the transition and we are likely to make a chance. Well, I just think in the Premier League, in the elite league, it's been shown in the 2 years nearly that Ange Postecoglou has been manager that we are conceding more of those moments than we are scoring, and that is just a fact. Okay, moving on to other news. Spurs consultant Fabio Paratici looks like he's joining AC Milan. This has been a will he, won't they situation this week. I've made videos about Paratici staying at Spurs and how it's going to help us. But now it looks like he's definitely going to go to Milan. A verbal agreement is in place, according to Di Marzio, for him to become their sporting director. Goodbye, Don Fabio. Goodbye to your addiction to your iPhone headphones. He was very passionate about Spurs, but I think in terms of the optics of the club, maybe it'll mean we miss out on a lot of good young Italian players. But in terms of optics for the club, to have a full-time career football criminal involved as our sporting director might not have been a good idea. Richarlison's future, more reports yesterday, appears to be away from Spurs. We're ready, apparently, to listen to offers for the Brazilian this summer. He'd prefer to stay in Europe, but would listen to any proposal, apparently, because most of all, he wants to rekindle his best form. He needs to just get on the pitch. Ange says that he is fit again. He's training with the first team. Be interesting to see as and when he gets some game time. I'd suggest he might be on the bench. If not tonight, then probably against Southampton at the weekend. Some good news from the academy. Callum Olusesi has signed a new contract with the club, which will run until 2029. And apparently, the young midfield/forward rejected interest from the likes of Bayern Munich, Paris Saint-Germain, Juventus and Ajax before signing this new deal. If you remember, he scored that great goal with his left foot in the Europa League earlier this season. He rose through our academy system and made his first team debut against Hoffenheim in January this year. He's played for the England under-18s and under-17s, and he's netted 4 times in Premier League 2 appearances so far this term. So very good news that we're signing up our young talent to long-term contracts, and long may that continue, because one thing Tottenham need to really improve at, that the likes of Chelsea and Manchester City are great at, is not only bringing players through from the academy, but then also what happens is if they're real talents and they're really getting chances in the first team, but maybe not regular first team players, and other clubs, particularly the promoted clubs into the Premier League, sniff around them. Think about Liam Delap at Ipswich. Think about how Cole Palmer got such a huge move to Chelsea even. And if we can start developing talent for the academy that can not only come through to the first team, but also if they're not kind of full-time regulars for our first team, can then get us 30 odd million pounds for transfer moves. That could really help us reinvest going forward. Okay, guys, it's a big Thursday. Obviously, Chelsea away tonight. Like I said at the top in my opening, I don't have any confidence whatsoever that we're going to win. I do think there'll probably be periods of the game where we'll be decent, if we're playing with Van de Ven and Romero. But too many times against Chelsea, I've just seen us squander situations. Yeah, I hope I'm wrong, but I envisage us unfortunately losing probably 3-1. But let me know in the comments what you think the score will be, and hopefully, maybe this can be the change around today. This can be the turnaround. This can be the momentum starter as we go into such a huge couple of weeks in this club's recent history, realistically. Don't forget, we haven't won the Europa League since 1984. So if we could find a way to start some momentum, get into that Europa League semi-finals and then maybe final, and do something that would really, just shut everybody else up. All right, guys, enjoy tonight's game. Come on, you Spurs.